Welcome back to another episode of the 100% podcast. On today's episode, I welcome Anna Priest to the show. And in good form, my technical system, when it came to recording the podcast, unfortunately, at the halfway point, blue screened me, shut down. And when I loaded back the computer up to see how we'd got on, half of the episode had disappeared. So on YouTube today, you have the last half of the episode. Now, I don't recommend you do that. In fact, I'm telling you not to watch the YouTube episode because the whole episode is amazing. But if you are a YouTube fanatic and you do prefer watching these episodes, then stick with us. The next 30 minutes is coming up and I hope you enjoy. Take care. So, obviously, one thing we've spoken today about is food noise, and there is going to be a correlation here. But one thing that I remember you speaking about, and on the podcast in November when we did it after the Goggins challenge, we were all damp, and we still managed to get a good episode in, even though it was a little bit shorter than what we wanted. Was we spoke about alcohol, and it was around the time where I was thinking about 2025 being a new year for me to actually go the whole year and not let any event get in the way of me hitting this 365 days without any drink, which is something that I like in my head. It was good sign of discipline. But one of the things that we spoke about, and I know that your PhD is about as well, is the crossover between unhealthy eating habits and binge eating, and the crossover between relationship with alcohol and how people can pick it up and put it down as well. And I was like, scratched my head and was like, I think I need to speak to Anna about it a bit more, so why not do it on the podcast? So what have you learnt from your findings and your research, Anna?
It's a really interesting topic, and there is a massive crossover between the two. So in the research, it's generally called like a sequential comorbidity, because there's a lot of people who are in alcohol treatment services who've got a history of eating disorders when they were younger. But there's also quite a bit where when people are recovering from eating disorders or disordered eating, turning to alcohol as a coping strategy after. And with the underlying factors, so the risk factors in terms of like trauma, family history, but also things like impulsivity, that is a risk factor for both. And I think you can see that a lot, and that makes a lot of sense with what people are likely to go for, what people are likely to kind of want support with and turn to. They're going to turn to these drinking, going to turn to these eating things. It can be that real quick in the moment of what they want, because it can fix things really quickly, or feel like it fixes things, like just a drink because I'm feeling all these feelings, just some food because I'm feeling all these feelings. And that can then get exacerbated, because if we think about the eating behaviours, where people often eat because there's stress issues, there's a lot of emotion dysregulation, often relationship issues, or interpersonal relationships, and food can become a real comfort. And when people work with food and building on that relationship with food, what it can actually feel like is taking away a coping strategy, because food was a coping strategy and food works as a coping strategy, and actually everybody uses it, comfort eating, really, really normal. It's only when it becomes the only coping strategy and to that high level that becomes a problem. So often then people turn to drinking, or vice versa. If people have been drinking, and again, there's those same interpersonal challenges, stress challenges, turning to eating behaviours to help push down that feeling and that stress, it can be that real comfort. So if we're working with people who are working on their relationship with food, they're not wanting to binge, but they really still feel those feelings, alcohol can be really helpful with that for them as a way of doing that. But that can then get exacerbated. And really, if we're not thinking about both, it can be really challenging because you're then not dealing with the actual underlying factors. You're just putting another coping mechanism on top, and actually ultimately they're both really dangerous when they get heightened. So thinking about our language around, I mean, the cultural aspects of them are really similar. Like, people are blamed, the individuals are blamed, obese people are blamed for being obese, despite the overwhelming amount of food noise and food that is pushed out there. And alcoholics are blamed for being alcoholics, despite the amount of money that is funded into alcohol adverts. And it's seen as socially acceptable to eat fast food and drink alcohol. But as soon as it gets to the next level, the blame is always put on the individual. So there's all these systemic problems as well as the individual and the coping mechanisms between the two. So how we're eating and how we're drinking, in terms of the abstinence effect of stopping drinking, if people are and do have that history of drinking, really abstinence is the only like solution for them.
Yeah.
But that real rigidity can then be a challenge with eating, because where you've got these binary rules around food don't work and can exacerbate binging behaviours. And alcohol, you can cut out and you don't need it. Food, you can't cut out and you do need. So where these like rules conflict, there's almost room for making the other one worse and like falling into each other, like feeding into each other.
Yeah, where I don't know whether this comes into your studies as well, but where's that link as well between so obviously food crosses over into that relationship with alcohol as well, especially if it's to do with like your mood or what's going on in your life and all of those kind of relationships as well. And then obviously the more modern one, and something I think that's prevalent there we go, prevalent in our age group and in our era as well, is the knock-on effect of alcohol and then a relationship with drugs as well. So narcotics, is that something that you're seeing because I imagine that surely, well, if we say that alcohol, it deregulates our hormones with hunger, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So if you're full when you've been drinking, you find it harder to register that. Your brain just won't notice that, actually probably better slow down now. It's why when you've had 8 pints, or like, you can drink 2 more, right? I guess there's something there that if you were to drink 8 pints of water in the space of 3-4 hours, there's no way on earth that you'd be able to. In fact, I think I've told this story on the podcast before. My old mate, Joe Davis, we dared him to try and drink a 2-litre bottle of water at school. Yeah. And like, obviously it didn't go very well.
Crazy days.
Crazy days. But obviously it came straight back up. He couldn't do it like in the time that he had to do it in, because his body just wouldn't cope with that. If you think about binge drinking and the amount of liquid that people put away, it's really bizarre how it does. Obviously it does come up in some ways, and we don't need to talk about that. But actually, I've gone on a right little tangent here. The question was the crossover between alcohol and narcotics and drugs. And have you seen is there any part of your study that links into that as well?
I'm generally focusing on drinking, but there is that crossover where they are often used alongside each other, especially at that real high level of drinking. But what drinking does that narcotics don't necessarily do is have the same impact with sugar, where if you're drinking, there's often the craving of sugar that you get from that. And especially there's this knock-on effect of, if you're having high sugar alcohol, you can then really crave, like, it really exacerbates your sugar cravings afterwards. So that's something that you don't necessarily get along both, but both are filling that hole and that coping mechanism, but not necessarily in the same way, but generally they are used.
I think one thing that I noticed recently as well is how even the relationship with I'll call it drug abuse, because essentially it's what it, like, there's no good benefits of doing it right, in my opinion. But the payoff of it for some people is that it just extends their day, where their body's saying, I'm really fucking tired now, I can't drink anymore. They'll go to come out from the toilet being rejuvenated and refreshed, and they can do another 6 hours or whatever. I just think, like, if you think about the knock-on effect that does have, and I think from a personal perspective, and I'm not here to preach at all, is that actually at the end of last year, when I had the weddings and things, and then I was picking alcohol up and putting it down again, I just realised the knock-on effect of my energy that would have, and maybe that's a placebo effect, because the nights started getting shorter, the days started getting shorter. We all know that feeling of the winter times and whatever. But I thought, you know what? If I'm trying to look after my energy right now and be the best version of myself that I can be, which obviously this podcast and my message is about, whether that be like you deliver 40% because that's how you're feeling on that day, or you can go out and smash an ultra marathon. Alcohol does slow that down. And I don't think there's like, you can't, I'm not saying you can't, but like, you can't say that there's more positives to doing that on a regular basis than not. And I think one thing that I'm trying to cross the bridge of right now is, where does it come back into my life, where I'm like, because I don't think, here's the interesting thing, and this would be the conversation, I don't think that there's a place in my life for alcohol where I'm just like, I'll go out and watch the football and have 2 beers. I wouldn't see the point in that because like, I guess my relationship with alcohol has always been, is to go out and get drunk with your mates and like, or go to the football and it makes the day at football a little bit more exciting. You feel a little bit more loose and you're laughing and whatever. Whereas actually I've never been a social drinker that's just gone out and had a glass of wine or just gone out and had 1 pint and gone home. It's always been like a big thing. Yeah. So actually, if I've taken that out, then where does that come back in on a moderate level? I just don't, it's interesting. And I remember a conversation actually that I had with Lewis, on my best mate. He was like, oh, we went up to London recently and it was, what did we do? We just had a weekend in London. We watched the cricket. I was right. And we went to this like baseball batting bar thing. It was good fun. He's like, oh, are you drinking this weekend? I was like, no, mate. Like, I'm doing the whole of 2025, no drink. And I don't mind sharing this story because it just gets you thinking, doesn't it? You're like, oh, that's a good perspective, but is it my perspective, right? And he was like, oh, have you just not thought about like not drinking, but when you do things like this, then you do? And I was like, well, yeah, obviously I thought about that, mate. But the point of this year was I'm going to do 2025 without drinking. I think when I've crossed that line, there's going to be a space for me in January to go, right, like, let's really sit down and work out what this is, because somewhere maybe there's been some wires, I don't mind admitting this neither, like some wires screwed in my head of the reasons why I've stopped drinking completely this year. I'm in an environment that is surrounded by people saying how much it's helped them, but then I also look at how their relationship with alcohol may have crossed over into drugs, which is why I'm thinking, okay, like that doesn't link with me at all because I've never touched it, you know what I mean? So it's never been about that. So so just an interesting topic, I think, to be like, okay, where are you at? And I think it's really important to, one thing that I would like people to take away from me spouting about this is that a lot of the information that you get around alcohol is very much based off the opinion of the person giving that to you, right? So off of their own experiences. I think it's what's really, like I'm going to do in January, really sit down and work out the pros and cons of it coming back into my life on a moderate level. And I think that's something that everybody should do. Yeah.
And why are you drinking? I mean, I've definitely drank too much on nights, like we all have. But I also know that there's days where it is in that social environment and I've actually really enjoyed it. And a cider in the pub garden with my friends, I love it. I feel like it's a wonderful way to spend the afternoon. But there is the line then when, and I said to my friend, I was like, nothing ever goes down quite as well as that first pint.
It's
like,
weird, isn't it?
It doesn't. It just doesn't. And yet you can then sit there for hours and hours and feel terrible. And at that point, what is it giving you and what is it taking from you? Because at that point, it's not actually giving you anything. But why are you doing it? And there's that, are you doing it in the social environment where you're with people and it's part of that whole experience? And could you have a mocktail? Could you have a cocktail? Like, what are you doing it for? And we don't necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about it. So I think that'll be interesting what comes out of it, to actually dig into
pros,
what
cons.
Would be most helpful for you. And maybe it is not really drinking. Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, on that subject of like the environment, and I went to watch Chris Brown in June, like judge me all you want. But me and Nikki sat in the square in Cardiff. It was 30 something degrees. It was insane. It was that hot. I actually had to go and buy a vest to sit in, so it was just sweltering. But he had a cocktail and I had a mocktail, sat outside of Cozy Club in Cardiff. And I was like, just having that drink is really weird. It was definitely more about the social and what was going on around me than anything else. Mm-hmm. And I think that was like a positive when I was like, oh, actually, this is just as good. Mm-hmm. But you're right, aren't you? That first pint, like, do you know the best pint in the world? Was the best pint in the world. First pint after a game of football. When you're like really thirsty, you're with your teammates, you've just won. That pint is like, on it. And that's what you're saying. Like, I would enjoy that pint tomorrow. Yeah. But I've made the decision that 2025 is the year where we really review this situation and then analyze where we're at. So on a takeaway from that, then it's a very much a personal choice, right? Yeah. And if you are noticing it being maybe your relationship with food, if you're somebody that's scared of the chocolate being in the cupboard, or you are somebody that sits there on a Sunday afternoon and eats a whole chocolate bar without thinking, and you notice that happens when you have a drink, it then turns into 8. Something that maybe you should probably work on your relationship with that as well.
And do you notice that as you're working on your relationship with food, that alcohol in the cupboard is starting to sound louder? And are you noticing that you're turning, or if you're drinking less, are you noticing that you're thinking about food more? I think that awareness and thinking about it in that broader sense of, it's not just thinking about food, it's thinking about what you're turning to and why you're turning to it and what's going on, and just getting a little bit curious, always with that curiosity of, am I drinking a little bit more? Can you think about all the alcohol that you've got in the cupboard? And do you sit there and go, oh, it's been a really stressful day? And are you like, oh, I'm on a diet, or I'm working on my relationship with food, but I will have a glass of wine? But is that doing the same thing? And can you actually do something that, instead of just necessarily pushing those feelings down, could you go for a walk and talk with a friend? And then you come back and you're like, oh, actually, I would enjoy like a nice drink outside separate, and it's not in this point that I'm doing it just to push down those feelings. So always thinking about that why, and just thinking about that broad with the drinking and eating.
Yeah, and that's that question as well, is would future Anna or future Harry be thankful for this decision in 24 hours time? I think that's something that definitely is something that's helped me with the decisions of whether it be whatever the decision may be. It definitely can help out. All right, we're on some like hot topics today. I've got down in 3 words here: weight loss drug. And the reason that I've put down weight loss drug, I have a couple of clients that have sent me through some articles and videos recently of it being discussed on This Morning, and how the knock-on effect of the weight loss drug is now coming out in studies, that it's coming when people come off it. It's almost like a relapse diet, like yo-yo diet is showing with the weight loss drug as well. And I think it's really important, especially from I'd say we're both holistic coaches. We both think about things in a different way than maybe somebody else would. Our message is, please work on the healthy lifestyle, not just your weight loss. And I think the weight loss drug is an absolute shortcut into, not scamming, that's a horrible word to use. Oh, no, fuck it, we'll go with it. We'll go with getting people to think about weight loss as just weight loss solely. And it targets directly into that quick fix 21st century mindset that people want, unfortunately. Diet culture. And again, I hate using the word scary, but it is a scary thing for 2 people that would sit down with somebody and try and work out a real healthy way for them to work on their relationship with food, work on their relationship with diet, work on their relationship with the scales, and achieve the goals that they want to go out and achieve in a way that suits them. Fundamentally, that's because as a sweeping statement, the weight loss drug isn't for everybody. But who is it for? And where does the caution come from you?
So if you are somebody who is in a bigger body and you would benefit from losing weight, and you have tried to lose weight previously and it's not worked, it could be for you. Go and speak to your GP though. But it should be done alongside support from somebody. And I think there's the aspect of it that is actually really positive, because we know that if we think about the factors that can impact people around obesity, there are people who do have louder food noise generally. They do have larger appetites generally, like genetics, where they are socioeconomic factors, all of these things that can make it harder to lose weight. The weight loss drug can be really helpful, and it can make them healthier as long as they're building along these factors alongside and have that support. But where it's pushed and become really normalized, and I've seen adverts around it, which they make me feel so icky. That's then targeting the general population who probably don't need it. And it's those people who, A, it's really expensive. B, it needs to be covered. If you're somebody who is really struggling with your relationship with food, it can be helpful in terms of quieting the food noise. But it needs to be supported alongside, and it should be. Like, there is this real opportunity. If you're overweight, if you really struggle with food noise, potentially if you've got neurodiversity, really helpful. And you can then build the tools, build the habits, and use that time as an opportunity to work alongside your relationship with food, to dig into these things while you don't have that food noise. And then when you come out of it, you've got so much more, and you've really built these habits, and you've really like worked on that relationship with food, and you've got that support. Without that, it is just another quick fix. So a lot of the weight does go back on, but for some people,
You're having a fight with that, Mike.
I am, aren't I?
Yeah.
But for most people, it's not the full amount of weight. So actually, the overall weight loss is lasting, but if you haven't kept up any lifestyle factors, often what does happen, and if you do it wrong where you have really low appetite, you can end up you can be nutritionally deficient because you've not actually eaten well if you've not thought about your food. And if you're not lifting weights along the same time, you're going to have reduced muscle mass.
Yeah.
So then at the end...
That's what they're saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of the weight loss drug is doing is it's just taking people's muscle density away.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that's really important about here, to talk about here as well, is I don't think it links back into that conversation about the DC or the superheroes thing, is that when people think about weight loss themselves, there's so many other words that come out of that, isn't it? Like the initial conversations you'll have with somebody, I just want to look a bit more toned, or I want to I want to look better, or I want to feel more confident. I think it's really important to say that dream physique that you may be thinking about, whether it's realistic to achieve or not for you with your lifestyle, with your family, whatever it may be, isn't achievable by just focusing on losing weight. There's so many other factors that come into that, like your macronutrients, like training with resistance, whatever it may be. And actually going on the weight loss drug, it will do exactly what it says on the tin. It will help you lose weight, but that muscular physical being that you're thinking, oh, this is going to help me get there, it's actually not, if that's the only thing that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And the risk of that long term is big, because also long term, if you're reducing muscle mass and you're nutritional deficient, you are then at risk long term in terms of your brain health, in terms of your body health, especially women as well, in terms of your period, in terms of fractures, in terms of falls, in terms of Alzheimer's. Like we're very good at thinking short term when it comes to this, and we're like, yeah, quick fix, drop the pounds. Or there's this sense of, as soon as I've lost X weight, I will be fine. But with this, it's always about the exit strategy, and what is that exit strategy going to be, and what are you doing to make that exit strategy as smooth as possible when you go through that process, because otherwise you are going to feel like shit, and you are just reinforcing that pattern that you can't do it, that you're rubbish, that you can't lose weight, and that you'll never be able to lose weight. So instead of spending that time reinforcing that pattern, spend that time proving to yourself that you can do it, and you can keep it off, and you can build these healthy habits. Like, think about which brain cycles are you reinforcing as you go through this, and where do you want to be at the end of it?
Yeah, and I think linking into the thought, this is the thought that's directly come into my head right now, and you mentioned it earlier as well, is that I think there is a narrative around the weight loss, and the message around weight loss is basically move more, eat less. And if you think about it scientifically, that will do the job for most people. But unfortunately, we're in a lifestyle now. I think, did you see Chris Williamson's post this week?
No.
Great Britain is now on, with statistics, the second most depressed country in the world. And I think that's quite sad, right? Because like I try, as you're aware, I try and look at the positives in most things. And I think one thing that's really important to take into consideration when it comes to weight loss is it's really natural to look for quick fixes, and it's really natural for us to crave that dopamine of the scales dropping down. And I don't mind admitting it, sometimes those old thought patterns that I was in like 9 years ago will still appear if I'm aware of them now, and I know how to shut off that chatter and focus on what it is that I want to focus on and stuff. But it's taken a long time to train myself to be able to do that, right? And it's no secret for me to admit that. But when it comes to weight loss, and when it comes to what people I think need to. I'm passionate enough to say I think people need to work on is it isn't the move more, eat less first. It's actually about building a lifestyle that actually gives them some form satisfaction, might be the word. Like purpose is quite a loose word in itself, but something that actually you wake up and the first thing you're thinking about isn't, oh, I want to lose weight today, or isn't, oh, I'm not feeling very happy. It's okay, like I'm in a position right now where I've got a strategy behind me and habits behind me that I know if I just pick 2 of them today, that's going to do me the job, and tomorrow I'm going to feel and wake up in a different mood. And without that, and I think and this is where the education comes into it, and this is why I think this podcast is a brilliant platform. Getting people like you on to talk about it is brilliant, because it's okay to not like the message of eat less, move more, because it does go deeper than that. And anybody, I could genuinely say this as well, anybody that's got any success with me and you and any other coach that I know, it's because they're happy to go the extra mile and work on the bits that maybe have been ignored in the past, like passions, like hobbies, like projects, like mindset, like confidence. And then when those things are ticked off, not even to like a degree of difficulty that you think is impossible, just a little bit, that makes eating less and moving more even easier.
Definitely. And there's so many more benefits that you get from like doing sports and doing exercise. And if you could do it where it is that social element as well, you're meeting so many more needs. You're getting the movement in, so you're getting the health aspect, but you're also getting in the aspects of your brain. If you're doing something you were rubbish at and you're learning, that's helpful for your brain as well, but that's also helpful for your confidence because you're getting better at something. The social aspects of being around people, being part of a team, like it's so much more than move more. Like what you're actually doing, can you be rubbish at something? Can you practice doing that? Can you just do something for fun? Can you play around with it? Instead of, I think we often see it as you have to go to the gym, even if people hate it. And then they're like, oh, don't want to do that. That's another barrier. What can you do? Can you go for a swim? Can you like do a dance class? Whatever it is. Go do Zumba. Loved Zumba. That's so much fun.
My craving at the moment, Anna, where I don't mind admitting this, gym relationship with me at the minute, I've got a couple of really annoying injuries and they're impacting most of my sessions in some way, so I can't go into them like guns blazing. I've got to like be real methodical, a lot of shoulder rehab and stuff. All I want to do at the minute is just like swim and kick some I really want to find somebody that will just hold some pads for me and let me punch them. Like it's just a bit of a craving. I'm going to tick that off soon, but I think it's really important. I spoke to a client yesterday actually, and he's done an insane transformation if you look at it from a physical perspective. But one thing that like you'll be pleased to know that is I'll always check in and be like, mate, if I was to walk away tomorrow, are the things that we've put in place for you right now sustainable? Like, and he was like, Harry, I feel weird if I can't, like if I couldn't go to the gym now or something like that. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And I think like if you were to go really in depth there, it's like, okay, like why is that? Is it like, is there a gym? Is there like something that you need to think about there? What could we replace it with if the gym wasn't there, kind of thing? But I was like, that is a healthy habit, and we've sustained a new version of this person that I'm really proud of, and I know that he's really proud of the changes he's made. But actually it's when you go fully in at the deep end and you've done something for 8 weeks that's 5 gym sessions a week, you kind of ignored your partner, your kids or whatever, and you're putting everything last. And when you drop that 8-week habit and you go back to regularity after, is that a word?
Don't know. Regularity?
Normality. That's a better. Normality after, like all of the old habits start coming back in. I think that's when you know that you've bitten off more than you can chew. And I think being 100% is about doing things that fit around your lifestyle and creating that, whether like being 100% is another way for saying creating the version of you that you want. Is about keeping habits and creating habits that you know whatever happens you can keep.
And that impulsivity of being like, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to do 6 gym sessions a week, that is something that is a risk factor of disordered eating disorders, and alcohol dependence. So if you are somebody that is like that, have that real awareness of it. And if you're a coach that works with people like that, like by feeding into it and encouraging it, you are putting yourself at risk more of that drop off and of that spiral, Whereas if you can really like be strict with yourself around, I'm only doing, like, if you're building up from 2, I'm only doing 3, and gradually building up, then that long-term, like, actually habit will be so much more enforced than this impulsivity of doing loads, drop off, do loads, drop off. And it'll actually last.
Unreal. Anna, we've shot some shit today, I tell you. It's been class. I literally love having you on the show. I feel like every time I record with you, I'm like, this could go on for another 30 minutes, another hour. But we don't want to, well, we will get you back on at some point, I'm sure. If I was to leave you with a question today, I know I've asked you your best bit of advice, or the best advice you've ever been given before on the podcast, but I want to flip it up this time because you've answered that question twice. I want to know your biggest lesson from 2025. What's the thing that's changed the most as well for you this year?
I think with the PhD and coming out of the NHS and into this role of being, you are the expert in what you're doing, there's something around like you knowing more, and but also being able to ask people, and there is no shame in asking people.
Yeah, nice.
Because I think before there was always this need to prove yourself, and I know I still have that, and I know I go into it more when I'm like, oh, I'm really tired, I'm struggling with this, I'm like, I can't ask this. But actually do that. I'm in a really cool space at the moment with some amazing coaches who are working on what they can add to like PT stuff to actually help rebuild and add to this making
like
coaching
stew
things. Yeah, and
nice.
Being the like almost smallest fish in the pond is really cool, because then you're around these voices that you can learn from, and just being that and soaking it all up and enjoying it. That's been really cool. And it's like the same with the PhD, where you're around amazing people, but knowing that you are allowed to be in this room, like it's okay, and just being in there and asking those questions. I don't know if I answered your question, but I think
it's the insight's really good. So all right then, here's what have you done to make yourself feel comfortable in the room?
Just do it anyway.
Nice.
Just do it anyway. I don't always feel comfortable. Yeah. Lean into it and have people that you trust, that you can be like, is this okay? Who like know you, and you're like, yeah, they know where you're at, they know what's going on. Having those people and you're like, oh, this happened, like I thought that was weird, they're like, yeah, you're right, that was, things like that. Those people that you can bounce things off in the different rooms, who know those areas and know your scope and know those things. Having those people around you where you, when you are feeling insecure and you just need someone to be like, nah, grow up, like you're okay.
Class. Anna, it's been a pleasure as always to have you on the show. Where can people come and find you if they want to come and see more about you, and they want to see your journey from being where you're at now to a doctor?
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
So my Instagram is annamarie.nutrition.
Perfect.
You can find me there.
Why should people subscribe to this podcast, Anna?
Oh, because it's incredible. Variety of voices. Harry's amazing.
There you go. Listen
Press
to
the
Anna.
link.
Press like and subscribe below if you're watching on YouTube. If you have enjoyed today's episode as well, but you are listening through your earphones on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, please go over to those places and drop a 5-star review and leave a little review as well. Write a review. It'll go a long way to helping the show out. I'll see you here with a new episode every Friday. Take care.